Good morning. Welcome everyone to today's segment of where we discuss policy and how it has been affecting and shaping the lives of every Nigerian. So today we'll be discussing something that is actually happening right now. As we can see, we are in the raining season, and if we take a deep look at what has been going on in our environment, we'll see that we have a whole lot of wastes and sanitation problem going on in Lagos State, and not just in Lagos State, even across Africa, across some other parts of the country, or sorry, some other parts of the world. And it has been a major issue in Nigeria, in Lagos, in Ogun State, in so many places. Now, we need to ask ourselves a question. Does Nigeria as a country, before we start breaking it down to different states, do we have the right policy, or should I say, do we have the policy that is actually backed up by processes, by implementation, by evaluation that can actually stop waste and environmental sanitation and make the country actually look great? So from my own point of view, I think Nigeria already has that policy. We have a whole lot of policies that talk about how people should take care of their waste and how it should be disposed and how the government should come in. We have this kind of policies, but what we need right now is money. I don't think we have money to push these policies forward or money to implement these policies, because implementation, when there's weak implementation, these policies are not going to work. Now, for example, let's take Lagos State's waste service as an example. We've been having problem with waste. Everybody's complaining that the whole of Lagos State is littered with different kind of waste. But we have a major waste waste dumping site, which was Olusosun. But now they said Olusosun is no longer in use because it's filled up. Now the other waste sites are at either Ekpe or Badagry. Now, waste carriers, that's the Loma agencies and all of them, are complaining that the distance for them to get through from wherever they pick up the waste to where they're going to dispose it is very far. So these are the things that we need to put into cognizance. That is the government actually working to make the policy? Are they putting money in the right place to implement these policies, or they're actually making the policies fail? So I think I would like to hear from other people, Mr. Nicholas, on what you think about this waste policy. Do we actually have a waste policy that can actually help Nigerians, not just Lagosians, because it's a Nigerian problem? Do we have a waste policy that can help us focus on waste and environmental sanitation properly? What do you think?
Thank you very much, hi to everyone. Good morning. So, shooting straight to it, I think I agree, and I have read the brief that was published in June, and I completely agree that it's at this point it's not really a policy problem. Yeah, there are a lot of policies, a lot of paperwork, and all that have gone in, but what we've seen less of is actual participation right now, even in Nigeria, Lagos, using Lagos as an example, only a fraction of the waste that is generated in Lagos is being recovered. And that is evident through the flooding and all that has been happening recently. So it's not a policy problem. When you look at it, from what we have observed, people would typically say Nigerians do not recycle, but that's not really true. Um, you see a lot of persons that sort out their waste and look for someone to give it to. You hardly see things like car batteries ending up in landfills. You hardly see things like bad equipment, ovens, air conditioners, and all that. It comes down to the economic value of why should people recycle. Uh, the challenge we've also observed is when you sensitize persons, when you create awareness and all that, if there is a fracture between the value persons get and the promise you have given to them, you are unable to keep that cycle going on. And like you have also mentioned earlier, and it was interesting that you mentioned that, one of the major challenges is logistics, if not the biggest challenge. You find that a lot of operators, let me use that word, a lot of operators a lot of aggregators, you find them mostly in the rural and semi-urban areas of the state. And why is that? Because that is where they can afford land. Maybe they see land for free to operate. Why you have rural areas within the state's capital and all that, with denser population, where we obviously know a lot of these pet bottle packaged drinks and all that is even much more being consumed. So who collects the items from these locations where we do not have aggregators? And what happens to these items? So essentially it comes down to the economics of the reverse logistics and the challenges with space and other things that are associated with operating in the recycling space. That's essentially what it comes to. It's not a policy problem because things that have high value in terms of recycle, you rarely see them at the landfill. So once we fix the economic side of things, I think everything is in place to go as it is currently.
Thank you very much, Mr. Nicola. At least we've heard from you now. You said it's not a policy problem. So do we have anyone that wants to counter that opinion? Ms. Ruth, Chike?
Yeah, so just to chime in, I think everything Nicola said is spot on as all the policies that normally would need to address the issue on ground. We have the APRs in place. We have several policies from as far back as maybe 12 years ago that the NESREA has put in place in Nigeria, and till date, those policies cannot get into effect because what's missing is the mechanism to make it work, right? So if on paper, let me give a very good example. If on paper, let's say something as simple as let's say a father says, he promises his child's school that he will pay their fees in 3 weeks, right? But this father in question doesn't have a job. So his word to pay in 3 weeks is worth something, but it's only worth as much as the job he has. That's more of like a very cool example, in the sense that policy is just words on paper. If there are no means of implementation,
Ms. Ruth, can you hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yeah, I think network has taken GK away, so we'd like to hear from you. You could help us buttress on what, agree or disagree with what Mr. Nicholas said, because he said policy, he doesn't think policy is the problem. So do you agree with that take, or do you think we actually need to break down the policies properly, or we need to come up with new policies that will actually work?
All right, so let me just confirm. Is this like my session you're inviting me to right now?
No. I'm not inviting you for a session. Mr. Nicholas, I raised up a point talking about introducing the topic on policy, and I wanted somebody to back me up. So Mr. Nicholas said that he doesn't think policy is a problem. So I wanted you to buttress on it, like give us an opinion on what you think on do we actually have a policy problem when it comes to waste management and environmental sanitation in Nigeria, or it is just a monetary problem or an economic problem?
Okay, so I don't think policy is the problem because we have a lot of policies. Please just confirm if I'm audible enough. Can you hear me clearly?
Yes, we can.
All right, thank you. So we don't have a policy problem because we have a lot of policies that have been written down. But what we have is an implementation problem, yes. So when the policies are enacted, we need more people we need the government, we need the leaders, we need everybody to be part of the implementation process. And now that it comes to our environment, everybody is a stakeholder because everyone utilizes the environment. We live in the environment. The environment is our home. We have nowhere else to go aside from the environment. So the community leaders, the chairman, the religious leaders, everybody, all hands need to be on deck to implement the policies we already have. And yes, even CSO leaders, young people, elderly people, everybody needs to know that they are stakeholders of the environment and they should be involved in implementing the policies we have. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So I'll be going further. So if we look at this, if we look at the situation of policy, we can divide it into three. Like we have the regulators. The regulators are always the government. They're the ones that make the policies. They're the ones that decide, okay, we want everybody to be pouring their particular debts at Okota. They are the regulators. They are the government. And then we have the audience. The audience are people like me and you that actually have to go through this problem every day. I think it was about 2 weeks ago, some Lagosians were having a brawl with Mr. Tokumbo Wahab, who is the commissioner for environment and sanitation in Lagos State. And people he kept saying, oh, waste had been packed at this. As at that time, we've not had serious rainfalls in Lagos at that time. So as at that time, he kept saying that, oh, this place the waste on this road had been cleared, the waste on this road had been cleared. And then citizens were actually coming out, giving him live updates, live pictures of tattered debts all over their streets, all over their places. And then he was still arguing. So at this point, we cannot say that the audience are not actually aware of the problem. The audience, me, you, the daily Nigerians, we are all aware of the problem. There's a problem, and the problem leads to flooding. When the policy is not working very well, when the policy is not being implemented in the way it is supposed to be implemented, or when it is not, if it was even implemented, if it was not evaluated properly, then there's going to be a problem, because you cannot close down a particular channel for waste disposal and then not open up the other ones, or not listen to the voices of the audience. And that's actually one problem that we have in Nigeria. It's as if the voices of you and I are not always being heard. It feels like, oh, we just keep having these policy conversations, but the voices of the average Nigerians either they are not being heard, or they are being discarded, or they are deliberately being please, somebody should borrow me that word. They are deliberately being there's a word I'm trying to look for. They don't, it's like our voices are deliberately being shunned, because every day we keep making noise, we keep shouting, we keep talking, but it's as if the government don't want to listen to us. Like, who are those people that are talking? Maybe you want policy, we do policy. At the end of the day, whether you follow the policy or not, it's not our business. Then if we look at it, the operators are the Loma, or should I say the people that are in charge of the waste disposal, the sewage, the waste. Do we have a problem with them? Because if we say we should look at it, policy, waste management policy, or should I say policy on waste management, is not something that has to do with only the regulators or the audience. It also actually has to do with the operators. What are the people that operate this system? Do they have a problem? Are they suffering from internal politics? Is it because of internal politics that we are suffering this lack of policy implementation and policy evaluation? Are we fighting the regulators because people cannot afford the fees for waste disposals? What exactly is going on? So if we look at it from the market lens, the waste disposal is actually a big market, because when waste is being disposed properly, if you have a channel of which waste is being carried out from one street to another, and people are actually paying for it, is a big market. So does the policy that the government have, does it cover this? Does it look into the market, or it just looks into the fact that, oh, as the citizens of Nigeria, we just want to dispose waste because we don't want the cities to be smelling? It means that if the policies are made because of that, then there's not going to be so much policy control on it. If the main reason for a policy being set up is just because you want to solve one aspect, oh, we don't want Lagos to be smelling, or we don't want Nigeria to be smelling. Nobody's thinking about the foreshot of climate change or flood, of public health risk or public health problems. Because when we have a problem with waste, there will be public health problems. There will be sanitation problems. There will be transportation problems. There will be flooding problems. There will be climate problems. So is the policy not looking at how it benefits the markets in these different aspects? Because when a proper waste policy is being in place, there are so many markets that it can actually cover. Like I said, it can cover the health industry, the environmental industry, it can cover transportation industry, it covers a whole lot of things. So if we are saying that we have policy in Nigeria and the policy is not looking into all these aspects, then is the policy actually working? So yeah, those are part of the things that I want us to look back into and really think about it. Because is the policy really working if all the aspects that encompasses a policy are not being put in place? So I would like to give Ms. Ruth first. I would like to give her so that she can come up and speak on her own session, so we can hear what she really has to say on this policy and waste management brief, or waste management policy we have in Nigeria as a whole.
All right. Thank you very much, Antonia. And thank you, SimpleFix Nigeria, for organizing this very important webinar. Please confirm if you can hear me clearly again.
We should be confirming from Chike, because it's the one that the network has been dropping off and on.
We can hear.
No, I just want to confirm if I'm audible enough, like everybody can hear me.
We can hear you. It's fine. I can hear you.
All right. Thank you very much. Okay, so I'll be speaking on the citizen, that is you, citizens, as the missing enforcer in the mobilization and participation and public project advocating with informal sector rather than around it. So just imagine, let me start with an analogy. Imagine you are walking through a neighborhood after a heavy rainfall, like in Lagos. Or it's not just Lagos that is flooding. There are so many parts of Nigeria, even in Cross River State where I come from, even in Enugu State where I'm residing, we currently have the problem of flooding, just that it's not as intense as it is in Lagos. The roads are flooded, plastics are floating everywhere, the gutters are blocked, and everyone is complaining. As usual, we blame the government, even the things that Tinubu is not supposed to do, even the things that our governors or our chairmen or other people in the local government are supposed to do. We blame the government. We blame the waste management agency. We blame politicians. But here's a difficult question. Who threw the plastic? Is it the government that threw it? Maybe it's them, but mostly it's us because we are more than the government. Who threw the plastic? Who watched someone dump waste illegally and said nothing about it? And then who buys the products every day without thinking about what happens after they become waste? The truth is, governments write policies, but citizens determine whether these policies succeed. So we are going to really talk in the next few minutes about how we citizens are the foot soldiers of the policies. It's because of us. We are the ones that are supposed to ensure that these policies are implemented, and we have a role to play. It's not just the government. We have a role to play in ensuring that these policies are enforced. So now, waste policy doesn't just fail because it is written. The problem isn't the absence of policy. In Nigeria, we have policies. We have laws. The problem is also because the government, they have their own role to play. But the problem is lack of active citizens. See, policies cannot separate waste. Policies cannot report illegal dumping. You're supposed to act like the watchdog of your neighborhood. Why are people dumping refuse here? You're supposed to report as a good citizen. Policies cannot educate our neighbors. citizens would have to do that. So citizens are the missing enforcers. We enforce through our behavior. If we sort waste out, so we can do, social media is there, but then we can start with our communities, community policing. Start with your communities. Talk about how we can separate waste. In Nigeria, in most waste dumps, degradable, biodegradable, and non-biodegradable waste are put together. This is not nice. In developed countries, in working places, we're supposed to have a separate place for biodegradable waste and non-biodegradable waste, so that we can recycle the non-biodegradable waste while we maybe decompose the biodegradable waste. They are not a real, biodegradable waste are not a real problem to the environment. I hope everyone understands what I mean by biodegradable waste. Okay, let me just explain. Someone might not understand. So biodegradable waste are waste that can decompose. For example, the waste from your kitchen, food, let me say, yes, food waste, dead rats. I shouldn't have said rats. Just anything that can decompose. Then the non-biodegradable waste are things like plastic, that cannot decompose. So now we can enforce this through community mobilization. One cleanup exercise can change an entire neighborhood. As a person that lives in a street, to organize a cleanup for your street, you can publicize it in your street WhatsApp group. You can meet your street chairman or any leader, I don't know what they call it in your street, organize a cleanup. Then one school club can influence hundreds of students. Currently, Let's Speak Africa is currently working on creating environmental storytelling clubs. So far, we have created 20 environmental storytelling clubs across Africa, reaching out to over 200 students. See, the youth are the future. These young people are the future. So when we talk to them, you need to be an active citizen, not because you want an award or you want a prize, but because you want the world to be a better place. In the season of social development, talking about NGOs, the rise of NGOs, the sprouting of NGOs, sometimes we fail to understand the real reason why we have NGOs. We have these NGOs to make impact and to make the world a better place. So many people feel that the reason why we have NGOs is so that you'll be traveling abroad, you'll be getting funding, and you'll get rich. No, we need to do some things that there's no funding for it, but you just get to do it. So there is also environmental storytelling club, I mentioned it. And then we enforce through participation, attend town hall meetings, join environmental campaigns, volunteer, support recycling programs, and community ownership. We can enforce this through public pressure. Governments respond when citizens organize. I'm not talking about violence, that you carry placards, and I don't even think that protests are bad. It's just that so many times this process gets hijacked by other people that constitute a nuisance and destroy things. So not violence, not insult, evidence, advocacy, petitions, media, community engagement. So now, when was the last time your community demanded better waste collection? Not on social media, but directly with the authorities. Many times when people want to engage with government, they just start insulting them. I don't think that is the most strategic. I feel like sometimes they can deserve it, but I don't think that is the most strategic way to get them to act. So now we must also work with the informal sector. Now, most people overlook the scrap pickers. These people, these waste pickers, I think that sometimes they are called scavengers, recyclers. For years, we have planned waste systems around these people instead of with them. Those waste pickers, please, do you know waste pickers? Do you see them in your environment? Those people that go to the trash, get plastic containers. I'm sure we are all aware of them. You can just give me a thumbs up if you are, so that I will be sure you're following me. Thumbs up, please. Okay, thank you. I'm sure I'm carrying you all along then. All these waste pickers, all these scavengers, in Enugu State, the government banned them. I know that sometimes they scatter the trash, but they are very helpful. They are very important. They need to be trained. They need to, instead of treating them as a nuisance, we need to train them. We need to protect them, teach them how to do it in a hygienic manner. We need to recognize them. Oh, Antonia, you said I have 2 minutes left. Okay. No, Wahala. I'll soon round up. We need to include them in policy discussions because they are already doing the environmental work. So we need to shall I say, package them better. So now what every citizen can do, we can separate waste, we can support recycling business, we can join community sanitation, teach children, report illegal dumping, we can buy businesses. Yeah, we can buy from sustainable businesses. I'm just trying to see how I can wrap up quickly. So we can support waste pickers instead of stigmatizing them, tell them that they are displacing the environment. They're helping us. They are responsible for a lot of recycling. They are very helpful because they pick up these non-biodegradable waste and then they give them to companies for a little amount of money. So I'll close with something. Let me leave you with this thought. We often ask, who will enforce these waste policies? Perhaps we have been asking the wrong question. The better question is, who has been missing from enforcement all along? And the simple answer is you, the citizen. Because a cleaner Nigeria will not be built by the government alone. It will be built when millions of ordinary people like you and I, they're not in the government. Yeah, and you can also aspire to be in the government, but people, right now, I'm not in the government. So ordinary people like me, ordinary people like me, when we start acting like watchdogs, when we start acting like people that can demand the change, when communities become watchdogs, when young people become mobilizers, when the informal sector becomes a respected partner, then and only then will our waste policies move from paper to development. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much for Ms. Ruth. That was very, very educative. Now we can see that the citizens do have an action to play when it comes to policy making. So we'll be calling on Mr. Chike to also take us through his session. I think I've actually botched some part of his section, but would like to listen from him properly. So Mr. Chike.
Thank you, Ida. Can you hear me clearly? Can you hear me at all?
Yes, you're audible.
Okay. I hope my network cooperates. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, everyone. So I really like the angle by which Ruth took the entire thing from the angle of citizen, but I'm here to basically go all against her. I'm being very honest. Not against her in the sense that her points are invalid, but her points are valid, but then there's a part in which the government has their own part to play. So very quickly, 10 days ago, right? Lagos went under. Festac, Bagada, Ikeja, Oshodi, Lekki, basically, floodwater entered the stations for transmission and took out 2 transformers. So lights went out in Bariga and Lakberry, right? So this disrupted the also it even affected the terminal at the airport. That's the terminal for international flights. It got that bad. I mean, like a man was swept in his kiosk. I saw that video. It was really terrible to watch that. This week, NiMet, that's Nigeria's agency for meteorology, right? NiMet has a flash flood alert running over Lagos, and also NiMet is an agency for meteorology. Basically, they try and tell us, give us the weather forecasts. And the advice to avoid flash flooding is to keep drains, gutters, and waterways free of refuse. That's NiMet. That shows you how bad this is. So if a meteorological agency's flood advice is waste management instruction, I think that's as grave as it gets. So right now, Nigeria generates more than 2.5 million tons of waste a year and recycles probably around 10% to 12% of that amount, right? Lagos alone produces somewhere between maybe 9 and 13,000 tons of waste per day, and formally collects maximum 40%, right? Then the core of the entire brief is that you cannot recycle what you did not collect, and what you did not collect will end up in the drains, in the canals, and end up on the streets. And when there's heavy rainfall, it will end up flooding the entire state. And then after you do that, when you now have floods, what you now have to do is then you now come up with maybe big projects to clear the drains that will cost billions of naira. You would have saved those billions of naira if you just cleared the waste in the first place. That's the point of the entire thing. So it's a common misconception that Nigeria has no waste policy. That's not true. There are basically two national policies. In 2010, an EPR program.
Hi, Chike. Are you still with us? Chike, did we lose you? Oh, wow. I think his network is not good. In the time Chike comes back. Oh, it's back already. Chike, please, can you hear us? Hello, Chike.
I can hear you. Can you hear me? Hello, can you hear me at all?
We can hear you. I can hear you. I believe every other person should be able to hear you.
Okay, so I just basically turned off my camera, so probably that'll make it better. Can you still hear me? Yeah, okay. I'm not sure exactly where I dropped off, but I was just saying that we cannot recycle waste that we don't collect, and then waste that we don't collect ends up on the streets, in our drains, and then ends up causing flooding when there's heavy rainfall, right? So I mentioned that there's a common misconception in Nigeria that there's no waste policy. Contrary to that point, we have two national waste policies. In 2014, we had the EPR program. EPR means Extended Producer Responsibility, which basically is very simple, saying that those who produce the waste should have some responsibility in getting it managed. In that sense, what that means in simple English is that if you're a producer, maybe you own a factory, you sell biscuits, you make gala, you do all those things. If you make all those things, you basically made those things for profits. What that means is that, to some extent, you should share the cost of recycling and collecting that waste. That's what EPR simply means. So that's for the EPR policy. Then we have another one that came up in 2020 and 2025. I'm not sure how much time I have, so let me just speed through the entire thing. So, right, collection breaks well under half the population, and financing falls on states rather than the producers. And this is because the EPR policy that we have, I mentioned just now, the EPR policy that we have is not fully in place to the extent that people who it's
Okay, it seems like Chike has gone again. So we are going to give the floor to the third speaker, the person of Mr. Nicholas. So please take us through your session. I think when Chike comes back, you'll be able to restart the session again. So Mr. Nicholas, please, let's have you on the floor.
Thank you very much. Thank you again to SimpleFix for this interesting conversation. And it's been an interesting one listening to Ruth and Chike. So I'm supposed to give some insights to operations and all that. I would first like to reiterate some of the things I mentioned initially, and I think this also aligns with some of the things Chike was also trying to put forth with extended producer responsibility and the other policies. First thing is economics. What's the unit economics of recycling? Nigerians are smart people. even if you have different perspectives, yeah, we've all learned about perspective at one point in our lives. Even if you have different perspectives, there's something that holds everybody in common regard. That's survival, that's money, and everybody wants to survive and even do more so prosper, make money, and all that. That's why I reiterate again the point I mentioned earlier that you don't see items with better economic value in landfills. You don't see that. There's a misconception that Nigerians do not recycle or do not want to recycle. Bring it back to the question: do Nigerians want to make money? Do they want to get money for waste disposal, for something that they have spent money on already? The question is a big yes. Capital letter yes. But let's look at the operational side of things and where things maybe can be better put through to make sure everything is going properly. I think Chike also dropped a few numbers, which I also want to align with. Right now, although I think he said like 40%, right now, yes, Lagos produces around, he said between 9,000 to 13,000 tons. Yeah, somewhere around, on the average, around 11,000 tons, even on a daily. And from reports, we see that we're recycling even less than 10% currently. We're collecting less than 10%. So that brings me to the first thing. The hardest point for an operator, the hardest point in the recycling value chain and all that is the collection. It's not the factories, because when people think about recycling, the first thing a lot of persons think about is, oh, we need more factories. You know, you do a big factory somewhere in this, somewhere in that, and all that. No, that's not where the biggest challenge is. The biggest challenge is collection. And let's bring it down a bit further. What do I mean when I say collection? I think Ruth also mentioned earlier, we have a lot of guys in the informal sector. Yeah, there's a lot we can do with those guys. We have persons that we have seen, at least from what we've observed, we've trained a lot of persons to go on to be entrepreneurs in this space. Because when you work with us, one of the things we promise you is we're going to train you, we're going to be with you all the way to make sure you're collecting and you're profitable in running a mini collection center, recycling business, and all that. But what we have seen is the economics does not really match, especially for a lot of items. I know in this conversation, we're particularly looking at maybe PET, yeah, that's polyethylene terephthalate, nylon, that's LDPE, low density polyethylene. That's what we're looking at. But when you look at these items, to put numbers to it, if you wanted to store a kilogram of nylon, you would need to keep a single sachet of nylon weighs on the average around 1.6 grams. Yeah, it means you would need to keep about 625 pieces of sachet. That's like 31 bags. Yeah, that's like 31 bags to get up to 1 kilogram. So you're telling a person that you keep this item and you turn it in, and the question is for what? What is my incentive for doing all this? Where is the challenge with collection? What is the cost of moving this nylon, this LDPE to where it needs to get to? I mentioned something earlier, which I also reiterate. In Lagos, for instance, in the urban areas, the state capital and many other places, I don't even need to mention names. You know the places that come to mind. Yeah. And these are some of the places that surprisingly were a lot affected by flood. You have denser population, you have things we recycle. Recyclables are gotten from mostly from items used to package consumables. You're talking about the paperboard, the PET used to package water, used to package soft drinks and all that. Yeah. You find this mostly in densely populated areas, and you have where you have the urban areas and all that. But we do not have operators able to conveniently work in these places. Operators cannot conveniently work in these places. Why? Because the cost of land to operate in these places is very expensive. Yeah. The cost of logistics, because the alternative, if you don't have real estate, you need to have logistics. Yeah. The alternative is, okay, go set up a facility somewhere not too far, and you move items from that place to this place. Yeah. But you still need to have something close, like a collection point and all that, close to these persons. Close, you need to have a hub and all that. Yeah, which is also how we are also approaching the collection here at Scrappies. But it still boils down to collection. The cost of moving, and I'm going to put actual numbers to you down the line, the cost of moving these items ultimately, for most material, erodes the profitability for a lot of persons in the sector. Because you see a lot of items in our gutters and all that, just floating away and all that. It's not because these items are not recyclable. No, it's because the scavenger that is picking all around, we only pick what is valuable for him. He also optimizes. He might not know the word optimize. He might not be able to tell you the word optimize, but he also optimizes what he picks. He's not going to pick something. He's going to travel over several distances with his foot or with keke or with bike, and he's getting something less than chicken change for it. Yeah. So collection is something that needs to be solved. If we cannot solve real estate, even with real estate, you still need to solve the logistic part of things. So the hardest part of operating is collection. That's the first thing I would like to point out. The technology, agent networks, local entrepreneurs, and all that. The second thing I would quickly like to point out is price alone does not determine behavior. I've mentioned that you won't find valuable things in dump sites. Another thing is convenience. A lot of businesses today are built on convenience. A lot of things today are being delivered to our houses and all that. Yeah, because when you're looking at pricing, people don't move over to a different competitor because of marginal pricing. If the pricing is good and you're offering maybe faster pay, is more convenient, there's not a lot of hassle, and I know that I can just step out of my house, I go 2, 3, 4 streets and I can drop this item somewhere, and I'm sure that this is going to be responsibly handled. I'm good, because I'm not just doing it for the money. For a lot of us here, there's also the social responsibility part for persons. Because some of these items go into sponsoring scholarships if you choose, when we partner with enterprise customers as well. Yeah. Some of the items we receive from there goes into sponsoring scholarships and all that. So it now comes down to, if we're sponsoring scholarships, it also needs to be convenient for us to align to what we need to align to. Yeah. If it's not convenient for persons to sort their items and dispose them properly, everybody will still revert to whatever they find convenient to them. 2 minutes left. Interesting. All right. All right. So, okay, let me just speed through. Yeah, the informal sector is not the problem. I think I already touched on that. The informal sector is not the problem per se. What we just need to do is digitize the identity, get transaction history, access to finance, predictable buying, logistics support. This also gets other partners interested. Yeah, when you can digitize and you can trace collection, you can talk about carbon emission savings and the market for carbon emissions. You can bring in financial partners. When financial partners, persons in the financial sector, they see the money, they can obviously see the money being properly documented. You have interest and people that also want to support because they want a piece of the pie, because this is a very large industry. Yeah. Also, back to the extended producer responsibility we were talking about. The important thing for extended producer responsibility is the policy is there, yeah, but it cannot stop at administration. I think that's what we need to solve right now. It cannot stop at administration. When you calculate, if you use the numbers you provided, 50 kobo per the amount of PET that's being produced, you have about 400 in Lagos alone. Yeah, the amount of items being generated in Lagos, about averagely 40 PET bottles make a kilogram, and you have up to 750,000 tons of these items being generated in Lagos annually. That's you going to about 400 billion or million. Yeah, last I checked the numbers. If this amount doesn't stop at administration, because when you stop as administration, you only have this being used for consultants, for research, and all that. A part of this money needs to go to the operators, not sharing the money, but to discount a lot of the costs that has to do with real estate provision, logistic support, and making life easier for persons in the operational sector. Because when their life is easier, it means they also want to stay, and you have more persons collecting. Then we can avoid a lot of things that we are seeing right now. I think my 2 minutes is up. I'm just going to push right here. I had 2 more points, but I'm just going to push right here. I think I've covered the most important things. So I think that those are the places we need to look at this point. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Mr. Nicholas. So before we break into the panel session, um, I would like to give Chike at least 3 minutes to round off what he was saying, so it doesn't look like the network didn't allow him at all. And so I'll
I'm
just give
so
you like
sorry,
three
guys. I'm
minutes
so sorry.
to round up what you are saying. All of us have an idea of what you are trying to say. So before we do the panel session where everybody has an opportunity to ask questions from the speakers, I would like to give you 3 minutes to just round off your points.
Once again, I apologize for the issue. I had to basically change my entire network plan to something else. But can you hear me now? You can hear me now, right? Can you hear me now?
We can hear
Okay,
you.
okay. So very quickly, so Nicholas has said many of the things I wanted to say. So I'll just say some parts that I think were not really highlighted. So he mentioned the EPR. So the EPR is supposed to work like a fund, right? And I was mentioning earlier on that before May this year, the EPR fund was basically voluntary. In that sense, producers had the option to just opt out and not pay, which was, from the government, highly irresponsible. But then beyond that, now that it's compulsory, we now have the Nigerian problem where, okay, now we have a fund, now we have money to do this. What do we use money to do? And that's part of what Nicholas was saying earlier on, where the money has to get to some level to the producers, right? Sorry, rather to the operators, where they can have money to properly organize themselves, pay people who are scrappers or scavengers, let them get better pay, get better care. In that sense, they are incentivized to do the things that they do, right? This is very important. But more than any other thing, yes, we've mentioned the government and their failings with policy and all that. Like Ruth mentioned while she was here, like she mentioned, the citizen has the highest power of solving this problem, right? And they are the ones who the most need to be incentivized. So I think part of the humongous money that will come out of the EPR fund, which if they do it properly, if they properly tax people who are producers, the money comes to that fund will be a lot of money, right? I think the core thing they need to do will be to create campaigns around citizens to get more disciplined. And beyond those campaigns, actually make it easier for them to do so. Now, what we have right now, for example, in Lagos is Loma, right? So you keep your trash at maybe a bin in front of your gate, and Loma comes and takes it maybe after a week or two. That's what happens right now. But then there is part of sorting the entire waste into blocks that are recyclable, and that is entirely different conversation. I think if you can, on some level, provide this sorting mechanisms from the get-go, where people have these bins available to themselves, subsidized at maybe yes at some cost, but subsidized with the funds you get from the EPR. But more than this, we need to have a means of waste collection in public spaces. I can't stress that enough. That's too important. So places like, for example, your cinemas, your banks, even on the streets, there should be a means by which we have bins that are stationary, and people not only see those bins, but know what they are for. Because several times in the past in Lagos, we've had several governments who have maybe made all these metal bins that swing, right? They were on the streets. But then those ones weren't effective because they just placed them there. Now in Lagos, where we have more of a problem with flooding, people actually know that now, if we dump this trash on the road, by next year, July, we'll be in flood. So we have to create campaigns around this idea, right? That your daily actions determines what happens to you next year. If you live in Lekki, if you live in Bagada, if you live in all these areas that are close to the water bank in any way at all, if you live in any of these places, people need to know that your daily actions will affect what you experience next year. And with the few things I've said so far, there are some things I wanted to say, but I think we're out of time. Let me just leave it there. I hope you heard me this time. I really hope so.
Yes, we did. Thank you very much, Chike. So briefly, we are running to the end of the webinar. So briefly, before we close, we want to do a panel session where people that have joined in can actually ask questions, educative questions on the places we are concerning policy. So you could talk to Chike, you could throw your questions to Chike, or you could throw your questions to Mr. Nicholas. Unfortunately, Ms. Ruth had to leave because of some pressing engagements. So, but we have people that can answer the questions that you have. So, anyone have any questions? Any questions? Any question? Does anyone want to say anything or add?
We have the hand raised.
Wait, sorry, where's the hand? I can't see the hand. Okay. Mrs. Fumilola, you have the floor. You can please ask your question.
Good afternoon. Pardon me, I was trying to unmute. Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me, please?
Yes, good afternoon. I can hear you, ma'am.
Okay, thank you. I'm sorry I'm unable to put on my camera here. I think this would be for Mr. Sobaloju. The webinar, I joined after the webinar started, but I'm trying to understand if I got everything he was trying to explain to us. So I read recently, I think about 2 days ago, or still on this waste disposal issue that we have in Lagos State, that currently in Lagos that we have just, I think, over 400 trucks that operate, and we actually need at least 2,000 for this to be done effectively in Lagos. And that's one of the main disposal sites, that's Olusoso, that might be moving. So it's another problem for these trucks, the refuse trucks, to move to other places like in Badagry and Ekpe. So the logistics is another story for another day. So I'm trying to understand if Mr. Sobaloju's proposal is supposed to close this gap, or we still need to bring in as many trucks and all that. I'm wondering why this has not been thrown open, because if we are having just a little over 400 refuse disposal trucks in Lagos, and we need at least 2,000 to make sense of what is going on, you know. And Mr. Chike said something as well. He mentioned having these bins in public places. I think we actually do have quite, you know, a number in public places. When I go to malls and all that, I see all over, even in the markets. But what happens is most of the time, especially the ones in the market areas and all that, you see them totally overflowing. Each time they are overflowing, and with the rains now, it is just a total mess. So I want to understand if that gap is supposed to be closed by Mr. Sobaloju's proposal and what he does. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sulu Funlayo Farashi, for bringing that up. So I'll just go straight into it. So you brought up some data points, which I'll start with. Yes, 400 trucks, 2,000, and if I'm being honest, even the 2,000 is only speaking to should I say some national parastatals and all that. When you bring in, like, I want to use the example you have mentioned. You have these bins everywhere, yeah, but they are overflowing. So the question is, what exactly is happening? The challenge is collection. The most difficult part of this entire flow is the collection. That is the nut that we are still trying to crack. And there are two things with collection, two things that must be in place for collection. First, you must have a collection center, not too far away from persons you want to collect from. The other thing is, now there must be a transition of these items from where they are to where they need to be, which is logistics. And logistics has been a nightmare, not just for private sectors, even with the numbers you have mentioned, not just for the private sector, yeah? These are places where the fund needs to go to. And the question of, does it then solve the problem with pollution and the likes? Unfortunately, if you look at the distribution of waste with, if you go to your bin and just take a survey of the waste you dispose and all that, things like plastic and all that, they are not biodegradable. They take millions of years to degrade. You have scavengers going to landfills to still pick up items that are recyclable. Just follow through with me. If the item was separated from when it was consumed, the producer that used it separated the PET at their houses, separated the organic waste and all that. You have government institutions only taking out maybe the items that nobody's recycling, yeah, and this is only the item that is getting to the landfill. It means that even with their 400 trucks, they can operate more efficiently. They are not carrying items that ought to go elsewhere, and their trucks are being underutilized. Yeah, these recyclables go where they need to go to. So operators in the recycling space are enabled to pick up these items. So you have government vehicles are being properly utilized to go around. Even in estates today, you find bins outside that are being overfilled. And people in estates, in quotes, you assume that they have more sense. So they are still putting it there because nobody is coming to take this item, yeah? So but if we can fix that part where recyclables go to where they need to go to, other items that are not recycled go to where they need to go to. Even with little resources, we'll be able to optimize and fix a lot of things. That is what we're proposing, and that will fix the nightmare we're currently facing. I hope that answers your question. All right, fantastic.
All right, thank you very much. I don't know if we still have someone that wants to contribute just for 1 minute or has a question for any of the speakers before we round up the webinar to another event for another day. So do we have someone else who wants to speak?
We have a hand raised.
I want to say a few things, and it's Amuche is my name. I'm from Enugu, and I wanted to support Sobaloju, Mr. Sobaloju said, and say that waste generators need more empathy. We need to do waste disposal and whatever goes with it with some empathy. Government cannot provide everything. They cannot come and do the waste disposal appropriately. That way, he talked about like PET bottles alone, even clothes. There are people who are using clothes, but here, people would prefer to take it to the overflowing waste bin than to give it to artists who upcycle it. They will say they want to use it for juju. Then we have degradable waste, food waste that you give to pigs, that you can use for compost. Those things, they don't need to be found in inside trucks going anywhere. So this is just what I want to say. I have so much to say from my experience working with, residents and waste management firms, from a non-scientific perspective, from an ordinary layman's perspective, but we don't have enough time. So I just want to thank you for giving me the opportunity.
Thank you very much, Ms. Amuche. We really appreciate it. So thank you everyone for joining today's session, for joining today's webinar, where we discussed waste policy and how it could work in Nigeria, in our states, in different places, because we are actually facing the problem now. And it is just, I can say this is just the peak of the rainy season is just starting. So we need to find solutions on what to do. If it's that we're going to lobby the government or make our voices more heard so that one government official can even come to our webinar one day and listen to what we are saying here. So it doesn't just look like we're just talking for ourselves. So they need to we need to put it forward. So thank you very much, everyone. I really appreciate your time. Oh, yes, Mr. Chike has something to say.
Yes. So just a few thoughts before we wrap up. So the idea of everything we do at SimpleFix Nigeria is that we're trying to empower people to know what's going on and then try to advocate rightly, right? So right now we're in the rainy season, and this is basically the best time for you to shout at your representative to get things done. This is the best time to do it, because we're currently in the period where we're facing the flooding. Every day rain is falling. It seems like it's not going to end. So, and again, in January, February next year is election. So whoever is vying for election at this point is time to press their neck. I want us all to leave this webinar a little bit more informed on how to do, how we're going to do that, right? So we mentioned several things. We mentioned the EPL, that's the EPL fund, which right now by government policy is now mandatory. So what that means is that from now till till the next rainy season, the government is going to get money from people who produce the waste materials to fund the EPR, right? That means from now till then, they have to be creating factors that will mitigate against flooding next year. So like at this point, there's no excuse. There's now money for it. Lots of money for it, right? So that's just one thing I wanted to point out. Another thing, yes, on this at this organization we plug shamelessly. So we are SimpleFix Nigeria. We are a young, just starting out policy think tank here in Nigeria, and let me share my screen quickly. And we really hope that over the next few weeks, months, years, that you get to see more of our work, you engage with us more and more, and most importantly, you take the things that you learn here and do something about it. Basically, we submitted these documents that we produced. That's the brief we produced. Find it here on our site. We submitted this brief that we produced to Lagos State House of Assembly. They haven't responded yet. I'm being very honest. They haven't responded. I don't know when they will respond, but at least we are trying to do something about it. And I expect us also to do the same. So as you've come here today, we've interacted, we've basically talked about the problem. It's time for you to do something about it. So thank you all. I'm Chike, my colleague is Onyida, and thank you, Nicholas. I'm sorry, I'm Igbo, so I can't pronounce your name so well, so I won't even try. Thank you, Nicholas, for obliging us on such short notice. Thank you, Scrap Page. Thank you, Let's Speak Africa, for joining the call also. Thank you, Freedom of Liberty International, and also the African Liberty Network for hosting us on this Zoom account. Thank you for all you do for us, and thank you to our audience who also joined us for this meeting. Until the next brief that we write, on the next webinar that we have, stay safe. God bless Nigeria. Bye, y'all.
All right, thank you very much, everyone.